Z자, ZY, ZR, M 통자, M 소문자.
Excellencies, Minister Choi, Her Excellency Yoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to the audience in the room and also to the audience that we have with us via Zoom online. It is truly an honor to be your moderator today. My name is Ingvild Solvang and I am Head of Climate Action and Inclusive Development at the Global Green Growth Institute's headquarters in Seoul, South Korea. I think we are all happy to be here. The event is about the role of forests to support global net zero and the connection from COP26 to the World Forestry Congress next year in 2022. I am going to keep my mask on during the session, but I assure you I'm all smiles, particularly because of the good news that we've had for forests already this week. So without further ado, it's a great honor to invite the Korea Forest Service Minister, His Excellency Byung-am Choi, to come forward to deliver a welcoming remark.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome. I am Minister of the Korea Forest Service, Choi Byung-am. I would like to extend my gratitude to co-chairperson Yoon Sun-jin of 2050 Carbon Neutrality Commission of the Republic of Korea, and Head of Department Vladimir Dmitriev of Federal Forestry Agency of Russia, and all distinguished guests for joining us today. The Action on Forest and Land Use World Leaders Summit was held yesterday by UK's Prime Minister Boris Johnson, along with several heads of state present. The outcome being the adoption of the Glasgow Leaders' Declaration on Forest and Land Use. The third themes of yesterday and today's World Leaders Summit are NDCs, forest, and technology innovation to climate change. In fact, among themes focusing on specific sectors, action on forest and land use was the only theme to be selected for summit. Worldwide leaders have come together to attend an event about forest because of the significant role of forest to combat climate change. 2021 is the first year the Paris Agreement moves into action. COP26 calls attention to ambitious NDCs announced by each party and the effectiveness of their execution, as well as whether an agreement about the market mechanism can be reached based on Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. With this backdrop, the 15th World Forestry Congress, to be held in May of next year by the Korea Forest Service and FAO, has adopted the following goals that ambition the next 10 years. First, to produce responsible answers that address what role forest can take on in regards to 2030 NDC targets and net zero by 2050 that were discussed at COP26. Forests have diverse functions, such as improving the air quality, acting as a carbon sink, and conserving biodiversity. Being mindful of its significance, the World Forestry Congress intends to produce and circulate well-balanced models to manage forests sustainably by 2030 and moreover 2050. Second, to advance to deeper discussions in the forest sector in relation to cooperative approaches, the emissions reduction mechanism, and non-market approaches based on Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. When referring to cooperative approaches, the forest sector is in urgent need of cooperation among countries. Accordingly, strong ties and communication between different countries enforcing REDD+ is crucial, considering that the project is carried out in developing countries. Observing past COPs in recent years, the fundamental reason a mutual understanding of market regulations of the Paris Agreement could not be reached was due to the different priorities of stakeholders. Forest leaders around the world must cooperate and come to a constructive consensus so that REDD+ can contribute to the attainment of the Paris Agreement. Third, to identify the role of forest in relation to the post-2020 global biodiversity framework in detail. A virtual high-level meeting of the CBD COP was already held in October, and the Kunming Declaration was adopted. COP15 will be held in Kunming, China, starting on the last week of April next year. The post-2020 global biodiversity framework is expected to become a new policy framework for reducing biodiversity loss in ecosystems and expanding protected areas, restoring terrestrial and marine ecosystems, accessing living organisms and genetic resources, and sharing benefits. We will aim to create mutual synergy between CBD COP15 and the 15th World Forestry Congress held in an adjacent time frame. Fourth, to serve as an opportunity to induce ambitions, financial support, and technological transfer for forest conservation and restoration in developing countries. The Global Forest Finance Pledge was developed this COP26 with UK at the center. 12 countries, including Korea, made a commitment to support the conservation and restoration of tropical forests with a total of $12 billion from 2021 to 2025 at the Action on Forest event held yesterday. Next year's 15th World Forestry Congress will serve as a platform to make these commitments by countries and international organizations, more specify and share tangible ways to increase the effectiveness of their implementation. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, research institutes such as the World Resource Institute published a report called Global Maps of 21st Century Forest Carbon Fluxes. January of this year. According to this report, forests around the world currently absorb about 16 billion tons of CO2 of greenhouse gases. But the amount emitted by deforestation and forest fires exceeds 8 billion tons of CO2. So the actual net absorption is about 7.6 billion tons of CO2. According to the above-mentioned report, the capacity as a carbon sink of the South American Amazon, the Congo Basin of Africa, and Southeast Asia, which are referred to as the world's three largest tropical forest regions, have gradually decreased, whereas the amount of greenhouse gas emissions is rapidly increasing. The current proportion of forest of the world's total land area has decreased to 31%, which is less than 1/3 of the Earth's surface. Although the UN's goal is to increase this up to 34% by 2030, the trend is in recent decades is consistently showing a decrease in forest area. This is also the reason why the UN set the next 10 years as the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration 2021 to 2030 in 2019. Korea has restored its forests that were almost in ruins by planting more than 10 billion trees over half a century. I believe the 15th World Forestry Congress, to be held in Seoul, will serve as an opportunity to gather the spirited passion of the world to preserve forests around the world in the best way and restore them in the most effective manner. The significance of forest restoration and the world's aspiration for it has become more ambitious that today's event will be the first step to such discussions. See you in Seoul next May. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Choi, for your leadership. Thank you to Korea also for your leadership. And as the minister said, FAO is also the co-host of the World Forestry Congress. So the next remark will be from the Director of Forestry Division of the FAO, Ms. Mette Wilkie, and she will deliver her speech by video.
Good afternoon. It gives me great pleasure to be able to deliver some few welcoming remarks at this event on behalf of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. And I wish to thank the Republic of Korea and in particular Minister Choi for inviting me to do so. Ladies and gentlemen, by 2050 there will be almost 10 billion people on this planet. We must ensure that safe and healthy food is available for all. At the same time, we know that we need to drastically reduce the CO2 emissions if we are to reach the objectives of the Paris Agreement. Forests and trees are essential if we wish to achieve both of these goals. They play crucial roles in food security, in rural economy, renewable energy, and in climate change adaptation and mitigation. Currently, more than 1 billion people depend on forest foods. And 2.4 billion people, that's almost 1/3 of the global population, use firewood or charcoal to cook their daily meals. In developing countries, forests provide up to 20% of income for rural households and up to 80% of the medicines that they use. Forests and trees also support agricultural production by, for example, stabilizing and protecting soils, influencing climate and regulating the global water cycle. They also provide habitat for more than 80% of terrestrial plant and animal species, including many pollinators and natural predators of agricultural pests, as well as hold the gene pool for future crops. All of this is crucial for food production. When integrated into agricultural landscapes, trees can increase the agricultural productivity as well. They also provide a renewable and environmentally friendly raw material with much smaller environmental footprint than any other substituting material. This all means that forests and the products and services they provide are one of the most efficient and cost-effective solutions to climate change. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations is committed to promoting sustainable practices that deliver healthy food and prosperity for all, while at the same time conserve our natural resources. To promote this, FAO is working with countries to coordinate land use approaches across sectors. We have documented that over 20 developing countries have managed to increase their food production while at the same time maintaining or even increasing their forest area and managing their forest sustainably. So it is possible. We just have a lot of work to do still. We need to turn the tide on deforestation and forest degradation, which continue at alarming rates. FAO's Global Forest Resources Assessment 2020 tells us that each year we're losing 10 million hectares of forest. That's an area twice the size of a country such as Costa Rica. This is affecting climate, biodiversity, people, and the global economy. Forest loss also negatively impact on people's health and well-being. Nearly 1 in 3 outbreaks of emerging infectious diseases is directly linked to land use change, such as deforestation and forest degradation. And the risk of new pandemics will continue to increase if we continue business as usual. We urgently need to act. While tackling deforestation and forest degradation, we also need to scale up forest and landscape restoration. FAO and the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP, are leading the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration that runs from 2021 to 2030, and it aims to prevent, halt, and reverse the degradation of ecosystem worldwide. And let me then just encourage you all to be part of this initiative and to be part of generation restoration. Ladies and gentlemen, FAO is proud to support the Republic of Korea in organizing the 15th World Forestry Congress that will be held in Seoul from the 2nd to the 6th of May next year. We see this Congress as a wonderful opportunity for a focused discussion on how we can come up with recommendations to continue to strengthen the contribution of forest to the global sustainable development agenda. Beyond the existing international agreements, we're eager to discuss their enhanced contribution also in the context of the outcome of COP26 and of the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. Under the theme, Building a Green and Resilient Future with Forests, the Congress will shine a spotlight on the importance of forest for the health, well-being, and stability of the planet and its peoples. At the same time, it will provide a great opportunity to strengthen international cooperation and partnerships in forestry and beyond, particularly in the context of building back better from the COVID-19 pandemic. I'd like to invite you all to join us at the Congress as we seek to build a better future together. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you to Ms. Wilkie. I think that's a brilliant scene setting to continue to explore the linkages between the World Forestry Congress and COPs. So next up, I would like to welcome our keynote speaker, Her Excellency Yoon Sun-jin, who is the co-chair of the 2050 Carbon Neutrality Commission of the Republic of Korea.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I am Yoon Sun-jin, co-chairperson of the 2050 Carbon Neutrality Commission of Korea. First of all, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to Choi Byung-am, Minister of the Korea Forest Service, for making this keynote speech at a meeting to consider the role of forest for global carbon neutrality. I sincerely feel blessed to be here at COP26 again in 2 years' time, realizing how valuable everyday life was before the COVID-19 pandemic. At the same time, I recognize the grave responsibility in that the future generations might face the risk of losing such previous daily life unless the current generation fully tackles the pending issue of climate crisis. Against such a backdrop, IPCC provides new time estimates, which advances 10 years to the previous estimate for crossing the 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold. Such decision made by IPCC states that the Earth is becoming hotter at an unexpected pace across the globe, including Europe, North America, and Asia. Extreme climate conditions, heavy rainfall, wildfire, and landslide have frequently taken place in every part of the world. I believe that immediate actions for carbon neutrality must be taken by all of us today. In this regard, as of last year, 2020, the Republic of Korea declared its 2050 carbon neutrality and successfully legalized the Framework Act on Carbon Neutrality and Green Growth. In addition, 2050 Carbon Neutrality Commission was inaugurated, keeping tabs for quick transition to a carbon neutral society in every aspect of social and economic landscape. Korea rearranged its 2030 NDC to a challenging level, which is a step that we must take to achieve carbon neutrality. Korea also officially claimed its determination to reduce 40% of greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 compared to the level to the total emissions of 2018. Despite such ambitious target, given that Korea is heavily dependent on energy-intensive and high greenhouse gas emitting manufacturing industry and relatively short period of time to go carbon neutral by 2050 after its peak time of emissions in 2018. Korea needs to achieve higher level of annual reduction compared with its neighboring developed countries. Yet, the Korean government stays determined to upgrade its NDC from 26.3% to 40% from 2018 emissions, as it recognized the urgency of climate crisis. I'm sorry. Act on Forest and Land Use is one of the three themes of COP26 World Leaders Summit. It was the only theme focusing on specific sectors to be selected for a summit because of the significant role of forests to overcome climate crisis. Even in Korea's 2030 NDC and net zero scenarios by 2050, the role of forests as carbon sinks is very important. Along with transition from a fossil fuel-based energy system to renewable energy-based one, industrial restructuring, and green remodeling, the role of forest in a single field of sink is emphasized. In addition, the Korea Forest Service is establishing specific implementation strategies for each detailed task, such as sustainable forest management, expansion of new afforestation, and the creation of urban forest. However, efforts at the national level alone are insufficient to strengthen the role of forest for global net zero. Even now, forest loss is occurring all over the world due to deforestation, forest degradation, and large-scale wildfires. Massive deforestation in the world's three largest tropical forests is still ongoing, even at this moment. International cooperation is essential to prevent such large-scale deforestation, and cooperation between developed and developing countries is urgently required. I understand I'm sorry. That the fifth World Forest Congress will be held in Seoul, Korea in next year. At this event, I look forward to discussing the role of forest for global carbon neutrality and discussing more details at next year's World Forest Congress. Uh, I'm sorry, I need to go before. Uh, yes, massive deforestation in the world. No, I'm sorry. Ah, Korea is a country that has succeeded in reforestation by restoring devastated forests for half a century. It is also the first country to become a group of developed countries from developing countries since the establishment of United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD, in 1964. Korea will be able to serve as a bridge between developing and developed countries to achieve net zero by 2050 through global forest cooperation. Thank you for coming here, and I really hope today's discussion will produce more productive results, and I hope you will be in Seoul next May. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yoon. We will proceed in the programs. We will first have a series of thematic speeches before we round up with a panel discussion following that, just so to give you a sense of how we will run the program. So it is a great honor to invite our first thematic speaker, Mr. Hang Suntra, who is Deputy Director General at the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries of Cambodia, overseeing also relationships with the ASEAN and the Cambodia Republic of Korea relations linked to forestry. It's an honor to welcome you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Excellency Minister Am Chung Choi, His Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, delegates who are attending here, I'm having my great pleasure and golden opportunity today to be here and make my presentation to you all. And I really would like to express my sincere thanks to His Excellency Minister, the Korea Forest Service, who inviting me to this very important event. So, good afternoon. This is my presentation. I'm talking about a little bit Cambodia and also the experience of implementing the RED Plus project in Cambodia. So, so this is general information about Cambodia. Cambodia is a small country compared to other countries in ASEAN. We quite small. The total area is only 181,000 square meters, and our population is only 16 million. And we have around 1.5 million in the urban area. This is the location of our country. As you can see on the map, we are close to Thailand on the west, Laos on the north, and Vietnam on the east and south. This is our forest cover map. As you can see, there's a lot of green in our country, representing forest area. And as you can see, the yellow part in the middle there's a Great Lake inside the country, and that is the yellow part are paddy field and lowland. Yeah. On the western part are mountainous area, and on the eastern side is a plateau. And it is a unique of Cambodia. We still have a lowland forest in the middle of the country, where we call in Kampong Thom province. So this is the figure about our forest cover. We have around 8.5 million hectares total, and at the moment we have around 47% of the total area. So now I'm going to tell you about Cambodia's position for this COP. Cambodia reaffirmed commitment to the UNFCCC, in particular the principle of command but differentiated responsibility and respective capability in light of different national circumstances and its centrality in the Paris Agreement. Stresses is Cambodian to need to strengthen the support of ASEAN vision for climate action toward 2050 and to underscore the need for adequate, predictable, transparent technology development and financial support with long-standing commitment. And now I'm going to tell you about the effort of Cambodia, the strategy of the National Red Plus program. So we have ratified of our UNFCCC in 1995, acceded to Kyoto Protocol in 2002, National Roadmap for Red Plus Readiness 2010, start UN Red program in 2011, and form National Red Plus Task Force in 2012. And we have strong commitment on Red Plus in Cambodia. So the program supports Cambodia for Red Plus implementation, including development of the necessary institution, policy, and capacity. So this is showing that the government of Cambodia is very strong interest and support to the Red Plus implementing in Cambodia. Besides the program, we are also having National Red Plus strategy. So the strategy prioritizes action on climate change. So it is integrated approaches considering both national and subnational level. So it is to help to enhance coherence and coordination. So the strategic objectives are improve management and monitoring of forest resources, land use, strengthen implementation, and mainstreaming approach to reduce deforestation. Also, we have action of investment plan were developed and established of Red Plus Task Force consultation group. We have technical team. Also, we have conduct assessment of existing experiences. So now may I come to the core of the project idea, the project implementation project in Cambodia. As you can see, the first picture over there, people barricading, standing as a barricade to stop those illegal logger or encroacher into the project area. So those are really the project team, the local people, local government, experts from the international community. They are all working together to protect the forest. This is the entrance to the project site. As you can see, a lot of trees surrounding. And yeah, the rest is just showing the logo of Forestry Administration and the logo of the Korea Forest Service, which are very close and supportive partner to this project. So the project established jointly by Korea Forest Service and FA of Cambodia. FA stands for Forestry Administration. It started in 2014, December. So it aimed to reduce greenhouse gas emission from forest degradation and deforestation and to enhance livelihoods of the local community. This is very important because our people still depend on the forest resources for their living, subsistence, and living within their area. So we have to focus on leveraging, supporting their livelihoods. So the objective, another aim is to, the objective is to promote bilateral cooperation between Korea Forest Service and FA of Cambodia to support implementation of Cambodia National Red Plus strategy and program, build country capacity at national, subnational, and local level. This is very important because the project is not just the project. It is launching also to build capacity because it is new. So Cambodia still, at a level of low leverage that for implementing the project. So we build not only the capacity at the local level, but at the provincial and the national level. Still, a lot of people need to learn to understand the situation. So it supports the livelihood, as I mentioned. So the location is in the middle of the country, just right the middle in Kampong Thom area. The unique survival forest lowland area in Cambodia. So this is the map showing you the project. The total area is 70,000 and the accounting area is only 56.7 thousand hectares. So there are 14 communities living within the project area. And the life cycle of the project is 30 years, starting from 2015 to 2045. Its expected carbon sequestration from 12 to 19 million metric tons for 30 years. The scope of project is conduct measurement, reporting, verification, we call it in short MRV, to generate VCU. So register also the scope of the project to verify carbon standard, discuss benefit sharing mechanism to generate VCU, and sale of carbon credit. At the moment, voluntary market only. So the top issue is to discuss about benefit sharing. And if we fail in sharing of the benefit from the project, I don't think we can have a sustainable management of our forest. Because everybody, if they found that it is useless for them, they don't join, they don't participate. If they feel that their ownership in protecting the forest, especially local people, local authority, if they understand that this project is belong to them, it's not belong to the Korea Forest Service, it's not belong to the Forestry Administration. So this is the concept that we try to introduce to our local people, local authority, and local government. So we have some opportunity to have our project here. We have Cambodia Millennium Development Goal. We have rectangular strategy. We have active involvement from the stakeholder. And we have the Korea Forest Service, of course, who is the main partner, who are supporting us. Without supporting from the Korea Forest Service, from the Republic of Korea, our project is rather hard to start from the beginning. So we thank you very much for Korea Forest Service and the Republic of Korea, the people of Korea who are, generously provide funding for our project. And of course, the Korea Forest Service has no intention to stop at the moment. This is this is considered as the pilot project only. I hope that the Korea Forest Service have intention to expand it to a large scale after successfully implemented this pilot project. However, we have some challenges ahead of us, and we have experience with it already. So there's required time and effort to improve mutual understanding among different agencies and interests. You know, from the beginning, we try to convince people. We try to convince the local governor, local authority, local people to understand, to support our project. We're working very hard, so it takes time. This is our big challenge. So different view on the concept of RED Plus vs actual implementation. Also a big conflict of idea. And forest fire, customary slash and burn practice, illegal logging, forest land encroachment, it happened in the project area. And it is people depending on the forest area, slash and burn for agriculture, for their livelihood, for their survival. So we have to structure all these things. So, yeah, and carbon market accessibility, we still have the voluntary, not compulsory. That is another big challenging for us. So how about step forward? What are we going to do next? We have to upgrade our RED Plus project from pilot to ODA with the Korea Forest Service. If the Forest Service continue support, then we will be very happy to work closely with the Korea Forest Service to expand it to other region, other area. So the location, the area that we're going to expand, maybe in other province, Cardamom Range in Kakong province, in Prey Long, Kampong Thung, and protected forest area in Krabi here. So in this case, we also seek collaboration with other partners, including private sector and other organizations who are interested to join us with Cambodia and the Korea Forest Service to expand it. So follow the applicable international guideline and rule of procedure is another step for us. We cannot avoid from that kind of guideline and procedure that is a good direction for us to follow. So we learn from international experience, we copy whatever we applicable to Cambodia context. Key partner. As you can see on the screen, there is no Korea Forest Service. Of course, Korea Forest Service is the main partner with us. So we have Provincial Department of Agriculture, we have Provincial Department of Land Management, Urban Planning, and Construction. Why we involved with that department? Because they are dealing with the land title. They are dealing with the issue of land. So without recognizing that land is belong to the government or belong to the or local government or local people, then we cannot operate. So we have to be legal support by the Ministry of Land Management that our project implementing on a legal status land and forest. So local NGO, there's involvement of local NGO. They are also very active in working with us, support us in implementation. Community. In our project area, 14 community, they are working hard with us. They know, they consider that this is their ownership. The project is their ownership. So this is very important. That's the end of my presentation. If you would like to know more, you can go through the website on the screen. Then you search more information from that project implementation. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. Kamsahamnida.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hang Sumtra from Cambodia, for that comprehensive overview of your RED Plus initiative and for highlighting many of the accelerators of successful programs, international cooperation, benefit sharing, community participation and ownership, and capacity building. That was really excellent. Thank you very much again. We will invite you to join the panel in a minute as well. Next, we will have a video presentation delivered by the Executive Director of Asian Forest Cooperation Organization, AFOCO, Mr. Ricardo Calderon. So by video, Mr. Calderon.
The Asian Forest Cooperation Organization would like to thank the Republic of Korea, the Korea Forest Service in particular, for allowing APOCO to be part of this side event in this COP26 celebration. The side event entitled The Role of Forests to Support Global Net Zero, the Connection from COP26 to World Forestry Congress. The Asian Forest Cooperation Organization would be presenting forests and natural resources conservation initiatives in support to global net zero and the Sustainable Development Goals. This will be the content of my presentation. Of course, I will be introducing the organization, our geographic coverage, our mission, our vision, our strategic priorities and portfolio investment, the significant features of APOCO programs and projects, including the status of programs and projects. The forests of Asia covers around 549 million hectares and account for the 14% of the global forest cover. It plays a variety of ecosystem services for the 4.5 million people, or roughly 60% of the world population. The tropical forests of Southeast Asia plays important role in biodiversity conservation, provision of ecosystem services, and global carbon balance. Without proactive measures and concerted efforts from governments, developmental organizations, private sector, and civil society organizations, the forests of Asia are at risk of reduced capacity for climate adaptation and mitigation, limited provisions of ecosystem services, biodiversity loss, and reduced economic growth potential. APOCO is a treaty-based intergovernmental organization that was adopted in 2015 and formalized in 2018. Its precursor, the ASEAN-ROK Forest Cooperation, was formally established in 2011. It is duly registered with the Secretariat of the United Nations under Treaty Collection number 55833 as a multilateral organization, and we are granted a permanent observer status in the 75th session of the UN General Assembly. We have two principal organs, the Assembly, represented by the heads of forestry of the party members, and the Secretariat, headed by the Executive Director based in Seoul, Republic of Korea. We have a subsidiary organ, the APOCO Regional Education and Training Center in Myanmar. APOCO was included in the OECD DAC list of ODA-eligible international organizations from 2021 reporting and authorized to undertake fundraising and receive donation by the Republic of Korea. The headquarters agreement between Republic of Korea and Asian Forest Cooperation Organization entered into force on July 2, 2021 under Treaty number 2481. Presently, APOCO has 13 parties and 2 observers. Membership to APOCO is open to countries that are geographically located in Asia. APOCO promotes partnership with institutions and countries beyond Asia through joint programs. This is our geographic coverage, covering 13 parties and 2 observers in the colored as presented in the map. Next slide. Our vision and our mission. Our vision is a greener Asia with resilient forests, landscapes, and communities, with mission to strengthen cooperation in the forest sector and promote action-oriented practices of sustainable forest management through policy support, capacity development, and inclusive partnership to address the adverse impacts of climate change. Our strategic priorities and portfolio investment are scattered in our 5 major strategic priorities, initiating customized restoration and reforestation models, supporting research and development in climate change adaptation approaches, introducing systematic management on forest-related disasters, local livelihood improvement, and community-based small enterprise development, strengthening institutional capabilities, diversifying resources, and promoting regional actions. Our strategic priorities and portfolio investment are invested in the 5 strategic priorities valued at 62.7 million US dollars, with 27% or 44% coming from our member parties. Significant features of APOCO programs and projects. Current parties and observers encompasses diverse climatic zones and subregions, stretching from Northeast Asia, South Asia, Southeast Asia, and Central Asia. Hence, our programs and projects cuts across different forest ecosystems and functions. In tropical and mangrove forests, dryland and drought-prone areas, production and protection forests, natural and plantation or artificial forests, including disturbed terrestrial ecosystems. These are some of the areas where we are investing in tropical and mangrove forests, in drylands and drought-prone areas, in production and protection forests, in natural and artificial forests, in disturbed terrestrial ecosystems. We use different technologies and approaches of restoration, rehabilitation, and reclamation of degraded forest ecosystems that involves forest genetic research on tree improvement, GIS and remote sensing technology application, integrated pest and disease management, forest fire monitoring system, community-based approaches, agroforestry development, vertically integrated approach, both for plantation development and non-timber forest products. And we prioritize conservation of natural forests and biodiversity. These are the significant features of this different technology. On genetic research on tree improvement, next slide. On GIS and remote sensing, you would notice the multi-country participation of our member parties. Next slide. In pest and disease management, which is a very important adaptation mechanisms for the APOCO projects. In forest fire monitoring system, basically focusing on capacity building and enhancing resilience to forest fire and local livelihood. Community-based approaches like village-based forest rehabilitation in member parties. We develop high-value species as the mechanism for sustainable forest management, including livelihood improvement for local communities. Also integrated village-driven forest rehabilitation and livelihood improvement. Agroforestry development, using different agroforestry models. Investment in vertically integrated approach, including non-timber forest products in our member parties. We promote vertical integration so that the community would be part of the value chain from planting, managing, harvesting, transport, processing, and packaging of forest products. Biodiversity conservation, including domestication of endangered, endemic, and threatened plant species in disturbed terrestrial ecosystem. Capacity building for landscape approach to support the sustainable natural resources management, which is one of our cross-cutting interventions. There are approaches common to all programs and projects of the Asian Forest Cooperation Organization. One, community participation in order to ensure project ownership, community buy-in, and sustainability. Multi-stakeholders participation in project management and decision-making process through our project steering committee for every project in accordance with the APOCO project manual. These are composed of national focal point, representatives from the Secretariat, environment and social safeguard expert, relevant ministry representative, and very importantly, the project stakeholders. Integration of livelihood and community-based enterprise, focus on forest-dependent communities in order to address socioeconomic needs and environmental concerns. The integration of capacity building of stakeholders, frontline forestry practitioners, forest researchers, policymakers through the Regional Education and Training Center, provide a platform of exchange of technical expertise and sharing of experiences through our annual thematic dialogue and annual technical meetings. The attainment of co-benefits in terms of forest carbon enhancement and biodiversity conservation, as guided by a focused environmental and social safeguard policy adopted in the third session of the Assembly. The program and projects and activities do not result in unnecessary environmental and social impairment, promotes transparency, predictability, and accountability in the decision-making process of environmental and social screening and social and impact assessments. Encourage project proponents and implementing agencies of APOCO to have appropriate consideration of environmental and social impacts. In terms of programs and projects, so far we have completed six completed projects valued at $5.9 million US, 21 ongoing projects valued at $20.8 million US. We have one project under project inception arrangement valued at $1 million US. In terms of projects in the pipeline, actually these are six projects valued at $7.8 billion US that was approved or that were approved on the fifth session of the Assembly last October 2021. And of course, the CLMB projects on forest fire resilience and community livelihood development, which is still under the pipeline. Currently, there's no formal United Nations systems-wide mechanism to enhance cooperation, coordination, and coherence on forest-related issues. However, there are several formal and informal initiatives aimed at improving forest-related based actions. The Asian Forest Cooperation Organization, as a formal intergovernmental body, is committed to provide the bridge in order to enhance cross-sectoral cooperation and broaden coordination and coherence among member parties, partner countries, and organizations on the sustainable management of forests for the continuous production of goods and ecosystem services, biodiversity conservation, and climate change mitigation and adaptation. Again, in behalf of the APOCO, Secretariat, and the member parties, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Calderon from AFOCO. And now we have our last thematic speaker, Chief Executive Officer and President of SK Forest, Mr. Inbo Chung. The floor is yours, Mr. Chung.
Thank you. Can you hear me? First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to Excellency Minister Che for the invitation. And for you all, it's my great honor and pleasure to introduce SK's story. My presentation will be basically three parts. First is how SK companies are concerned and enthusiastic about environment. And second part, how SK involved in forestry. And last will be the SK Forest, what we are doing right now and what we'll be doing in the future. Probably many of you don't know about SK, but SK is the second largest conglomerate in Korea, next to the Samsung. We have SK Innovation, which is the largest petrochemical company in Korea with the single most largest complex in the world. SK Telecom is the #1 telecommunication provider in Korea. And SK Hynix, they produce second most DRAM in the world and third most NAND flash memories in the world. Altogether, we have almost 120 companies and we make 116 billion revenues in a year. Although we are this big in size as the group, as an entity, SK is very much known as its resiliency and agility and uniformity in corporate culture. Here in the first diagram, it says ENS. It stands for the economic value and social value. most of companies are talking about they care about social value and CSR, but I don't think not as much as we do. We are really serious about this. And starting from 2018, we divided our evaluation system into two parts, our KPI into two parts. 50% we do with the EV, and rest of the 50% we evaluate the SV value, social value. So when we evaluate company or the CEO or even the employees of the SK, we measure economic value they make as well as the social value they make. I'm saying as social value, so you might think it's just part of the ESG, but actually ours, the social value is includes all the ESG factors inside. Diving into ESG, Korea, with the most of the Korean companies, we already declared net zero by 2050, not just by 50, but we put minus alpha. So with the technology development, will shorten the period of getting into net zero. And SK was the first in Korea to join RE 100, and rest of the companies in Korea is following us. As I mentioned, we had a lot of the businesses which are making tons of carbons before, but we are transforming into a more environmental and eco-friendly business. For example, at the end of the year, every year, the major companies of SK gather together, company CEOs gather together to talk about the future strategy. Until last year, they were talking about so many various areas of the business they are pursuing into. But this year, which finished last October, everyone was talking about environmental issues and how the environmental issue will be affecting them and how they are going to be leveraging these issues into opportunities. As I mentioned, we are looking forward to make net zero before 2050. But this is not just a one-year target. This is a multi-year target as well as a moving target. Every year we calculate how much carbon we produce as a whole group, 120 companies inside. And every year we decide how much we will be lessening in the year to come. So the target is moving according to the technology we are having. As I said, most companies are achieving net zero by 2040, latest 2050, but we are hopefully all the companies in SK achieve less than year 2050. On top, we said our ambitious target is reducing 400 million tons of CO2 by 2035, which will be account for the 1% of the global carbon emitted. So this target also will be moved up as the technology advances. Now we will see a brief clip about SK's forest. 여기 이거 지금 those clips were actual pictures taken from our forest, SK Forest, owned by SK. Our former chairman, he started this company in 1974. As you can see in the picture above, right-hand side picture above, most of Korean mountains were devastated like that. And right now, as you can see in the picture down below, not just our mountains owned by SK, but all the mountains in Korea has changed with the effort of everybody here and everybody in Korea. For doing that, he was the only person to be designated as a Hall of Fame in private sector. We own 4 different sites in Korea, which are about 4,600 hectares. The fun fact here is when the former chairman bought the lands for the forestry, he decided to buy land far away from the city as possible. So somebody asked him why you are buying such a low-graded land areas, and his answer was that when we buy the land near the city, then sometime later when city gets bigger, then forest can be devastated and turned into the commercial or industrial area. So his main purpose was to buy the land, grow the trees, and keep the trees and forest as it is in the future as well. So as a result, we planted more than 3 million trees just by SK. With his heritage is coming into SK spirit, we are doing more than 3 ODAs on global sites, Vietnam, Uzbekistan, and Tunisia. And in Vietnam, SK Innovations employees go there like 1 or 2 a year as a group and plant the mangroves alongside the coastlines of Vietnam, just for the CSR reasons. Now we are going into what we are doing as SK Forest. In Korea, about 66% of the forestry is owned by the private sector, private landowners. But unfortunately, it's not really managed very well. So our focus is leveraging this 66% of the private-owned forestry with a partnership with Korea Forestry Service and also the Korean the government-related entities. So the solution here is, before we are making this kind of platform, the private forestry owners didn't have any value for the forest to keep the forest, because there was no outlet for them to make extra money with growing the trees. So there are only options, some not very often, but suddenly they decided to just number down the trees and sell as numbers. The solution we are going to give here is, we, with the Korean KFS and other entities in Korea, we help them manage the forestry, not just like this, but better. And by making each trees a better carbon sink, we'll gather the carbon credits from this delta. If we connect the companies who are now pursuing for the net zeros, not just SK, but all the companies in Korea are pursuing for the net zero. So if we connect these carbon credits with these companies, and also there are a lot of new generations who have interest in our environment and forest as well. So we could give them the chance to invest themselves to the private owners. Then we'll have the better picture of the forest in the future. Secondly, we are focusing more on global sites as well. Just this year, we bought more than 2.6 million tons. And by 2030, we are pushing to 25 million tons from the global sites. Lastly, before we are doing the previous business model, so we had existing businesses. We are transforming every business into more eco-friendly and environmental friendly businesses. this is gonna be our last page. We are leveraging our forest, not just ours, but all the private sector forestry as well. And by doing that, we are hoping to support and do our the role as a leading role as the natural player in the industry. Thank you for listening, and this is all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chung, for highlighting the important role of private sector. That was the last of the presentations, and we will move on to the panel discussion. I will encourage everyone to take a bit of a stretch, maybe get up and do a little circle. I would like to welcome our panelists to come forward and join me here. We will invite back Mr. Hang Suntra from Cambodia. I also wish to welcome Director General of Environment and Forestry of Indonesia, Dr. Agus Justianto. Silakan, maju ke depan. And then I also, last but certainly not least, wish to welcome Head of Department for Science and International Cooperation of the Federal Forestry Agency of Russia, Mr. Vladimir Dimitrev. Please come forward. Thank you very much. Good to have you here. Now, if time allows, we will welcome questions from the audience online and also people in the room. So please think about whether you have a question or two to ask. But perhaps to get the conversation started, let's welcome our two new panelists who have not yet spoken to speak a little bit about Indonesia. If we start with you, Dr. Agus, to speak a little bit about your country's NDC commitments in the forest sector and the forestry strategies to achieve NDC targets in Indonesia.
Thank you. Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank to the Korea Forest Service for inviting me from the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, Republic of Indonesia, to this great occasion, discussing about the role of forest to support global net zero, the connection from COP26 to the World Forestry Congress. With regards to the NDC, the government of Indonesia has ratified the Paris Agreement and has submitted its commitment to reduce greenhouse gas emission with an conditional target of 29% and conditional target with international support of 41% compared to the business as usual emission levels in the years to 2030. Actually, this target is still far from sufficient to achieve the global target. Thus, the ambition to increase emission reduction target is needed. The Indonesian government has conveyed a long-term vision to develop a climate resilient low carbon development pattern in line with the Paris target called the Low Carbon Compatible with Paris (LCCP) scenario. In this scenario, the greenhouse gas emission will peak in the year of 2030 at 1,240 million tons of CO2 equivalent, and then decline and continue to decline to reach 540 million ton CO2 equivalent in the year of 2050. It is expected that the net zero emission will be achieved in 2060 or sooner. In the long-term strategy, the emission level in the LCCP scenario is much lower than the current policy scenario. An extension of unconditional NDC scenario in the LCCP
Yes, in the LCCP, the rate of increase in energy sector emission is slowed down, while from the land and forestry sector of follow, which was previously a net emitter and will turn into net sink in the year of 2030. The sector has a big role in efforts to achieve the Indonesian NDC target, contributing almost 60% of the total target. Significant effort to reduce follow sector emission and convert them to net sinks by 2030 in the LCCP scenario will largely depend on the success of the following efforts, that is reducing emission from deforestation and forest degradation by expanding protected natural forests, increasing community participation, and strengthening partnership with community in forest management. Second, increasing the carbon sequestration capacity of natural forests by reducing degradation and increasing forest regeneration through enrichment or implementation of sustainable forest management system. Third, increasing the carbon sequestration of land system by maximizing the use unproductive hollow carbon land for the development of forest plantation and other perennial, and then reducing emission from fires and peat decomposition by improving peat land management system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Agus Justianto. Let's move to Mr. Vladimir Dmitriev from Russia. If you also could share a bit about the targets in your NDC that link to forestry and the strategies to achieve those goals. Thank you very much.
Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги, добрый день, уважаемые друзья. Я хотел бы поблагодарить Министерство природных ресурсов Республики Кореи и министра за приглашение принять участие в этом мероприятии.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues, good afternoon, dear friends. I would first like to express my gratitude to Korean Forest Service and to Minister Choi for the invitation to take part in this event.
Что касается наших национальных целей, наших национальных обязательств, то здесь надо отметить, что у нас президентом установлена национальная цель, это снижение выбросов парниковых газов на 70% относительно уровня 90-го года с учетом вклада лесов в поглощение углерода.
Speaking about our nationally determined contributions, I would like to applaud our president who put an order with the target to decrease.
With the target to decrease the emissions to the figure of 70% on the baseline of 1990 with the full account of forests.
Что это значит для лесов, для лесного хозяйства, и этому вопросу у нас уделяется правительством и президентом большое внимание. Достаточно сказать, что в настоящее время сокращение выбросов парниковых газов в результате естественных стоков углерода в леса составляет порядка 600 миллионов тонн в год.
Indeed, forestry is high on the agenda of our government, and nowadays the decrease, and the sequestration by our forest is about 600 million tons per year.
Общие запасы углерода в лесах России достигают в настоящее время 42 гигатонн СО2.
General carbon stock in the forests of Russia is evaluated at about 42 gigatons of CO2.
Это составляет порядка 12% общих запасов углерода в лесах мира.
This is about 12% of the general carbon stock in the forest of the world.
Вчера, как вы знаете, был саммит лидеров, лидеров стран, которые поддержали декларацию Глазго, которая касается лесов и которая касается вопроса землепользования.
As all of you know, yesterday world leaders at the summit approved the declaration on forest use and land use, which is the key document of this summit for forest.
И в своем выступлении наш президент Владимир Путин также объявил о том, что к 60 году Россия должна достигнуть углеродной нейтральности.
And in his speech, the president of Russia, Mr. Putin, also declared the aim of Russia to achieve carbon neutrality by 2060.
С одной стороны, это должно, конечно, достигаться, безусловно, сокращением выбросов промышленности, в транспорте и в энергетике.
On the one hand, of course, this aim is to be achieved by decrease of emissions in transport and in energy sector.
Но, с другой стороны, перед нами это перед лесным хозяйством поставлены также большие амбициозные планы увеличить поглощение углерода в лесах в результате всех различных лесохозяйственных мероприятий в 2 раза.
On the other hand, Russian forestry also faces a challenge. We have to increase the sequestration of GHG, of greenhouse gases by 2 times, so twice.
Безусловно, в первую очередь это касается сокращения выбросов парниковых газов в результате лесных пожаров.
First of all, this is about decreases of CO2 emissions in forest fires.
Второе, такое очень важное направление, это изменение технологий и получение более таких адаптированных, природоподобных технологий ведения хозяйства.
Secondly, this is about nature-based solutions for silviculture and for forest management.
Безусловно, это увеличение площадей восстановления и лесоразведения.
Third is about increase in forest restoration and afforestation areas.
Ну и, конечно, сокращение площадей гибели лесов в результате различных природных и антропогенных факторов.
And the fourth, of course, we have to decrease the area of forests that suffer from anthropogenic and natural disasters.
Прежде всего, это касается также и вредителей лесов.
This is about pests.
Ну и, насколько я знаю, уже в этом направлении наши специалисты, наши ученые уже начали работать. Это довольно перспективная такая научная работа.
And it is good to know that our academia, our researchers already work in this direction. This is something for the future.
Что для этого нужно сделать и что для этого сейчас уже делает правительство?
What is to be done and what is currently on the desks of our government?
У нас существует государственная программа сохранения лесов, и буквально сейчас у государства она принимается каждые 5 лет. И сейчас государство уже приняло решение, поставило перед нами задачу продлить эту программу до 30 года.
In Russia, we have state program about conservation of forests. This is a 5-year program, and recently our government decided to prolong it for another period, so through 2030.
Вторая такая программа у нас есть, это такой национальный проект по сохранению лесов, который направлен на достижение национальных целей, которые поставил президент.
Secondly, we have a national project which is called Preservation of Forests, which is aimed at achieving the goals and targets set by our president.
И здесь вопросы касаются целей, которые затрагивают качество жизни населения и экологии окружающей среды.
The two priorities of this project is the quality of life of the people of Russia and improving the quality of environment.
И последнее, как бы вот в этом году, совсем недавно у нас закончена подготовка новой целевой программы, которая будет направлена, научной программы, которая будет направлена на изучение экологии и климата.
And this year we have launched a new research program on studying environment and climate.
Программа состоит из 3 направлений. Это первое направление, крупное направление, это мониторинг выбросов парниковых газов и как бы, исследование всех потоков углерода.
One of the priorities for this research program is monitoring of GNG emissions and studying the carbon fluxes.
Второе направление касается мер по смягчению последствий климатических изменений. И третье – это адаптация, ну, в том числе и лесов, и лесного хозяйства к изменению климата.
Second priority is mitigation, and third priority is adaptation of both forests and forestry.
И в этой программе лесному хозяйству, лесному сектору уделяется очень большое внимание.
Forest sector is one of the priorities for this whole research state program.
Здесь будут и вопросы генетики, здесь будут вопросы лесоводства, здесь как бы будут новые технологии, которые должны появиться в лесном хозяйстве, такие климатоориентированные технологии.
Among others, we plan to focus attention on forest genetics, on silviculture, on forest innovative technologies, and on climate-related forestry.
Ну и в качестве небольшого примера я могу сказать, что у нас уже сейчас запущена нашей Министерством науки новая также программа, это по созданию карбоновых полигонов.
And as one example, I would like to say about the decision of Russian Ministry of Science to launch a program about carbon polygons.
Ну, суть этой программы – это максимально подробно изучить потоки углерода, динамику накопления и распределения углерода в различных экосистемах.
And the core of this carbon polygons program is to study carbon fluxes, study the dynamics of carbon sequestration and its spread.
Ну, так как лесистость нашей страны, часть территории, которая покрыта лесом, составляет 46%, то на лесные полигоны приходится довольно большая часть.
Since the forest cover of Russia is about 46%, so we have quite large areas of forest polygons.
Ну и последний пример – это, безусловно, конечно, поддержка граждан, поддержка населения и поддержка волонтеров. Поэтому у нас каждый год весной и осенью проходят акции по восстановлению лесов, в которых принимают участие все желающие добровольно основе люди.
And the last example is about support to population and awareness rising. So every spring and autumn we hold campaigns for general population, people of different ages and volunteers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dmitriev. Now, Mr. Dmitriev mentioned the Glasgow Leaders' Declaration on Forestry and Land Use, which I'm sure we are quite happy about. Now, that followed action on forest and land use being declared as a theme on this year's World Leaders Summit. So perhaps if I may turn to you, Mr. Hang Sunta, to give your opinion on what role the World Forestry Congress can play in taking forward the implementation of the declaration. Yeah. Yes, sure. Yes, so I will move first to Dr. Agus Justianto. If you wouldn't mind kicking off the reflection on the question on how the World Forestry Congress can play a role in the implementation of the Glasgow Leaders Declaration on Forestry and Land Use. And then we'll turn to you, Mr. Hang.
Thank you.
Yeah.
First of all, I would like to congratulate the Republic of Korea that is selected as the host of the 15th World Forestry Congress to be held in 2022 from 2 to 6 May of 2022. It is the first time the Congress has convened in the Asia Pacific region since it was held in Indonesia for 3 years ago. As has been promoted by Minister Byung-am Choi of the Korea Forest Service, the theme of the 15th the World Forestry Congress is building a green, healthy, and resilient future with forests. The World Forestry Congress is the most influential conference in forestry, serving as the global platform for members of the international community to come together and issue recommendation and declaration on major forest issues. The 15th World Forestry Congress in the year 2022 in Korea will set the stage for a timely discussion of how forests can help address and adapt to climate change, combat desertification, preserve biodiversity, and resolve other global environmental issues. At the same time, the coming global gathering will provide a great opportunity to build cross-border cooperation and partnership in forestry. Furthermore, regarding climate change, the World Forestry Congress should also include the net zero emission concept in the discussion. Net zero emission refer to a situation where human balances any continued human-caused greenhouse gas from an entity or anthropogenic carbon removal from the atmosphere that store the carbon dioxide in geological, terrestrial, or ocean reservoir or products. Carbon removal can include enhanced carbon storage in the forest, wetland, grassland, and agriculture lands, or the use of removal technologies such as direct air capture, bioenergy with carbon capture and storage, and enhanced weathering of minerals. It excludes natural CO2 not directly removed from the atmosphere by human activities. Eventually, about the Glasgow Leader Declaration, the World Forestry Congress should highlight the importance of commitment, particularly the financial support commitment from Annex 1 countries to the developing countries. Forests has important role in tackling climate change. However, developing countries still need forests as a form of resources for developing their nations. Therefore, financial support from developed countries shall be delivered. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Agus. So returning now to Mr. Hang Sunta, your thoughts on how the World Forestry Congress plays a role in the implementation of the ambitious forest and land use declaration from Glasgow.
Please allow me to take off my mask when I'm reading so that you can hear me clearly. Thank you again for allowing me to the floor to express Cambodians' view on the action on forest and land use. I have been selected as one of the themes of this year's World Leaders Summit, and accordingly, Glasgow Leader Declaration has been adopted in the opinion. So the question is that what role could the World Forestry Congress take on the fully implementation of this declaration? So of course, this is very great news to see that the world leaders have agreed to adopt this declaration and make such a commitment to halt the reserve forest loss and land degradation. This is very great news that we have heard that yesterday declaration from the world leader. So this is a remarkable milestone on human history that care about our unique planet and forest. As you can see, in the other world, even in the moon, on the moon, you cannot survive over that land. Even Mars or other planet, we cannot find any other planet that can be supported the life that we have nowadays. So we have a very unique, a very supportive, like heaven for us. Why don't we try to work together to support that? And the World Forestry Congress is one of the actions that we are working together, and we appreciate the roles of Korea Forest Service leading from now to next year to the 15th World Forestry Congress. And we, Cambodia, very support of this idea. So we all know the forest land are losing day by day. So nothing can stop because it is happening on the ground. So biodiversity in the natural forest is almost very important. Without forest, biodiversity disappears. We cannot find it. So on the other hand, we are working hard to restore our forest ecosystem. I really appreciate that effort that we starting from the Rio Earth Summit to Kyoto Protocol, and now Paris Agreement, and later Paris Agreement, and we have done a great job on this. Millions and millions of hectares of forests are being restored. However, I am still not satisfied with that because humans on Earth are still vulnerable on climate change. So therefore, stopping deforestation is the best decision for now. I strongly support the Glasgow Leaders Declaration on Forest and Land Use that have made yesterday. The World Forestry Congress, of course, has played a vital role to support the declaration. I strongly encourage all climate change key players to focus their effort and interest on the World Forestry Congress, especially the 15th World Forestry Congress to be hosted by ROK in Seoul on 2 to 6 May 2022. So agreeing on the declaration is a significant step, but what about implementation? This is a question. So we need to think about how to effectively implement toward its goal in 2030 and beyond that. So I believe there will be thousands and thousands of issues and challenges on the ground are waiting for us. So we have to struggle all together. And I think the World Forestry Congress can be served as a nice and sound gathering for foresters, experts, as well as the policymaker to bring those issues and challenges on the table. So recommendation and action plan born from the World Forestry Congress will be the key solution contributing to the implementation of the declaration. So therefore, in my opinion, the World Forestry Congress is absolutely important to this declaration. And I urge everybody support that and participate and prepare from now. Ready to go, start your journey preparation from now, ready for the World Forestry Congress, the 15th World Forestry Congress to be held in Seoul in the Republic of Korea. And Cambodia will join and support fully with the preparation. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hang, for that, and not least for putting the significance of the declaration into a galactic context that seems very appropriate, and for highlighting the importance of the WFC. Mr. Dmitriev, if you have any additional reflections from the perspective of Russia on the role of the World Forestry Congress, please. Thank you.
Да, большое спасибо. Ну, я считаю, что это действительно очень важный такой политический шаг, что главы и лидеры стран приняли такую важную декларацию по лесам.
Thank you, and indeed I agree that it is an important political step that heads of governments and leaders of countries approved of Glasgow Declaration.
И, конечно, это очень такое хорошее мероприятие обсудить на Всемирном лесном конгрессе, каким образом можно будет ее реализовать и как разные страны с какими планами, с какими подходами намерены это сделать.
I also think that it would be a good idea to discuss at World Forestry Congress in Korea on the implementation of this declaration and exchange opinions of different countries on how to make it live.
И, конечно, это очень хорошая площадка. Я, бывал на нескольких лесных конгрессах и могу сказать, что, безусловно, это интересная площадка для профессионалов, которые имеют возможность общения и возможность обменяться своими мнениями, своими достижениями и какими-то своими там новыми технологиями.
I have been to several World Forestry Congresses, and I guess that this event is indeed a very nice platform for countries, for organizations, for experts to exchange experience and opinions and the ideas.
Ну, я думаю, что, безусловно, организаторы уделят там большое внимание тем традиционным современным технологиям, которые развиваются и развиваются в том числе в лесном хозяйстве. Это и цифровизация, это и современная генетика, это и современные какие-то технические средства, которые появляются в лесу. И, ну и, конечно, это космические исследования.
I am confident that the organizers and the host country of the World Forestry Congress will pay due attention to the innovative technologies which are already in forestry, such that relate to forest genetics, those which relate to digitalization, those that deal with satellites and space technologies.
Но я хотел бы обратить на текст декларации ваше внимание, и в нем уделено, на мой взгляд, нескольким таким принципиальным вещам. И я надеюсь, что организаторы Конгресса не пройдут мимо этого. И я бы хотел сказать, что первое, что там есть очень важный тезис, который касается того, что проблему леса, проблему сохранения лесов и проблему изменения климата с помощью правильного ведения лесного хозяйства мы можем изменить, вместе, совместными усилиями.
I would also like to bring your attention to the text of Glasgow Leaders Declaration, which features the statement that the issues which all our countries face, the challenges ahead of us, can be tackled and addressed only jointly in cooperation.
Это такой призыв к объединению профессионалов. А второй призыв очень важный – это то, что необходимо получить поддержку бизнеса, то есть привлечь бизнес-партнеров, которые готовы реализовывать те проекты, о которых, собственно говоря, мы очень много говорим, и в том числе и климатические проекты, которые будут обсуждаться даже на этом саммите.
So this is kind of appeal for experts of all over the world to join forces. And another issue that we should bear in mind is the appeal to businesses, to private sector, to attracting resources from all possible sources, which can be implemented, which can help to implement the climate or carbon projects, which are to be discussed here at the COP26.
И, безусловно, очень важное такое, вызов, я бы сказал, нам всем профессионалам, это касается объединения усилий вокруг и вовлечения местных сообществ, потому как именно они должны быть максимально заинтересованы и максимально как бы стать участниками и нашими помощниками в тех проектах, в тех решениях по восстановлению лесов и по их сохранению.
And another challenge which we face and reflected in the declaration is about local communities, is about First Nations. Those stakeholders can help us, and we should listen to them in our efforts to restore and to conserve our forests.
Ну и в заключении, ну такие банальные вещи, но они очень важны. Это, безусловно, наука и образование. Без этих двух компонентов мы не сможем не оставить как бы наследие нашим, ну я не хочу сказать потомкам, но нашей новой смене, которая придет, не заинтересовать ее, не как бы дать им какое-то новые знания, с которыми они должны двигаться вперед.
And in conclusion, I would like to focus your attention on something which everybody understands. Of course, this is education and this is science. Of course, we need to bring attention of younger generations for them to have our experience and to follow us in our aims, in our goals and expectations.
Ну, а в заключении я хочу пожелать успеха организаторам Конгресса, потому что мы им дали столько много ценных советов, даже если они хоть часть из них выполнят, то уже им можно там памятник поставить.
And in the end, I would like to wish all the best to those people who are organizing the Congress, because all of us have shared so many good ideas, recommendations to them. If just a part of it is implemented, it would be already a bingo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dmitriev, and thank you, Madam Translator, as well, for your support. Wonderful. I think the agenda for the WFC is now shaping up, and that was the last question to the panel today. We will now move to the closing remarks, which will be delivered by Director General of International Affairs Bureau and also the Secretary General of the 15th World Forestry Congress Secretariat, Dr. Unsik Park.
Yeah. Good evening. Good evening, Excellencies, distinguished speakers and guests, and ladies and gentlemen. Today, when I heard your speech, and I'm certain that the forest is part of the central part of the all discussions in this COP26. So, as we all have seen in many sessions and dialogues, even in the World Leaders Summit, the role of forest is always the center of the discussions to tackle climate crisis. Now, no one has doubt that the forest is a key solution to the climate crisis. I believe today's discussions once again made us confirm the widely agreed fact. Responding to climate change is not only for our survival, but for an indispensable task that mankind must address for sustainable and balanced life with the nature. Also, in order to overcome the climate crisis, a wide variety of the cooperation is essential at various levels, and all stakeholders should be embraced in this effort. Through this work, the forest can be transformed from carbon source to carbon sink. Just like the COP26, under the main theme, the building a green, healthy, and resilient future with forest, the 15th World Forest Congress will be another opportunity to identify what issues are occurring in forest sector and discuss variable measures to solve them and making tangible outcomes. For instance, we will focus on the financing for forests in high-level dialogues and ministerial forum. Just like yesterday, the World Leaders Summit mentioned about the global financing for forest pledge. In line with this commitment and pledges for forests established during this COP, we will be able to derive concrete actions. with those actions, it is expected that the Congress will play a key roles in promoting integrated approaches and implementation by linking outcomes of the 3 Rio Conventions. I'm certain that the World Forest Congress can serve as a crucial opportunity to build partnership and cooperation in forest sector. As a Secretary General of the 15th World Forest Congress, I'd like to invite all in Korea to take a part for the very meaningful moment in next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Park. You are doubtlessly heading into exciting 6 months, moving towards the World Forestry Congress. See you in Seoul in 2022. This concludes our session. Thank you very much to all speakers and panelists.